we're doing that, Aaron and Tony and I were just kind of chatting a little bit. I will eventually introduce Erin, give her the huge introduction that she's deserves, but and wing it at the same time. So as we're kind of loading up in here, I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple of things. Number one, we have another webinar coming up, and we'll get something out to you this afternoon. We have Chris Lindell speaking with a company-wide presentation on Thursday at 12 o'clock. Some really good information about what's going on in the real estate industry. Chris has spoke for us before, and if you don't know Chris, he's a mega superstar up out of Minneapolis, a real estate agent, and just a great overall guy. He had a lot of really good insight about how to build your business, how to handle things right now during the pandemic, and he just did a great job. So we're going to get you guys an invite out to that. To my guests that are going to be there, we have a special link when you guys sign up for that we're going to be picking somebody randomly and asking a random question about his presentation. And if you get it right, we've got a pretty cool prize set up for you. So we'll get that link out a little bit later. And we're going to be doing something with Aaron a week from today. If you know a lot about social media, today's presentation may not be your cup of tea. And so Aaron and I talked about actually doing something a little bit different, where she would bring a more advanced social media presentation to you guys a week from today. So today's the intro part. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move our screen over so I can just read a little bit about Erin and her background. Erin Fox has been with us now 2.5 years with Cross Country. Her job, basically, she's in charge of all of our social media, and that includes about 3,000 employees, over 300 branches, and she takes care of everybody. She's amazing. She has a background in media. I looked her up and did a little bio work on her, and about 10 years that she spent in radio and different media there. And eventually we were fortunate enough to hire her, and it's been a blessing to have her. So I know you guys are going to get a lot out of today's presentation. One other thing that I want to share with you, we will have a chat box, and you guys can jump into the chat box with questions. Erin and I talked about specifically she'll take questions from you guys as we go, and the interaction's been really good on some of our other presentations. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Erin. And Erin, one more thing, when I get a question, I'll just raise my hand, and that'll be your cue that we've got something for you, okay?
Perfect. That sounds great.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, my name's Erin, and I manage social media at Cross Country. You know, I help with our corporate social, but really, excuse me, the larger portion of my time is working with all of our different loan officers across the country to coach them on their social, to talk about, you know, their specific audiences, their specific goals, and how to use our various social media platforms that are available to grow their business and to move it forward. So like Rich mentioned, today we're really going to do an intro. We're going to talk about the different social media platforms. What are the demographics behind them? And then what are some general best practices that apply to all social platforms? And then next week, that is really more a session for the folks who are already using social really well, or feel like they have a handle on the platforms, but want to take things to the next level. Want to make sure they're using all the tools in their arsenal to really be successful. The questions that you guys asked today will give us a good heat check of where folks are, so that we kind of know how in depth to go next week. So yeah, please feel free to send any questions, or if you have things you want to make sure we talk about next week, you know, let the team know and we'll dive into it. So quick agenda for today. We're going to talk about the state of social media, what's going on in the industry in 2020, and then dive into the demographics and the differences between the different social media platforms. So maybe you have a strong handle on one. Let's make sure you kind of understand all the other ones and what audiences are where. I love diving into the details of that. So that'll be hopefully really interesting for you guys. And then some general best practices. The nice thing about social media is there are some best practices for using the platforms that apply regardless of if you're using Facebook, if you're using Instagram, if you're using LinkedIn. So having a strong knowledge and handle on those basics will make sure that you're successful regardless of where you choose to spend your time. Awesome. So what's the state of social media in 2020? And keep in mind, this is kind of the state of social media previous to maybe the most recent months. There hasn't been any data that's really come out on how social media has changed, right, over the past couple months as far as users. What I can say is during this interesting pandemic we find ourselves in, folks are using social media a lot more. So some of the frequency and some of those numbers that we have that we're looking at here are probably going to go up. So I'll be interested to see, at the end of the year, how some of this data changes. But kind of previous to that change, what does social media look like today? 46% of people around the world are using social. That's 3.5 billion people, excuse me. But they're spending almost 2.5 hours of their day on social media. So of those folks who are using it, they're spending a huge portion of their day on social media, and not just on one. Most users split that 2.5 hours between multiple social media sites. So that means if you're on one, you have a good chance of catching them, but keep in mind that doesn't mean they're spending all 2.5 hours a day on that one site. A really important piece of data to keep in mind is that 91% of people are using their mobile phone to access their social sites. For me, as someone who manages social on my computer all day, that's an important thing to remember. Whenever I create a post on social media, I always look at how much text is in the copy and what does that look like on my phone, because the way your social media sites look on your desktop computer is so different from the way it looks on the mobile phone. So always keeping in mind whatever you're producing on social for your audience is more than likely going to be seen on someone's phone. So just take a look at what you're posting on your own phone to say, my goodness, is that a really long paragraph of copy? It didn't look like that on my computer, but once I got on my phone, I realized no one's going to make it all the way through this copy. Or, oh, I thought this photo looked really great, but now that I look at it on my phone, it's not quite what I thought it was. So always make sure you're taking a look at your content on your phone, because that is how most folks are looking at it. And then it's always important to understand our audiences and where they are. So down at the bottom, that just shows you where social media users are by generation. And this is probably not a surprise, right? Like almost every millennial on their mobile device is on probably multiple social media networks. 94% of millennials on social media networks. I read a stat at the end of 2019 that I don't know if it's in line with what y'all have seen, but that 50% of home buyers in 2020 would be millennials. So I think that demographic and knowing that's where they are is probably a key point for y'all. But 78% of Gen X, so the generation right above that, active on social, and then only about 50% of that baby boomer generation is active on social media. So that kind of gives you an idea of the lay of the land. So what are the trends right now in social? What are we seeing? What are people expecting? The number one thing really is that users expect like transparency and authenticity on social media. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you? It means that they expect you to just be yourself. They don't expect really high quality produced videos. In fact, the more polished something looks, the more people kind of question what it's all about. The nice thing is someone thinks a quick video shot on your phone where maybe you make a mistake at the beginning and maybe you stumble over your words a couple times. They actually prefer that. That shows that you're a real person. It's just like what happens when you have a face-to-face conversation with somebody. So the benefit of that is it means you need less and less help or equipment or outside people to make content on social media. If it seems real authentic and like someone could do it at home, people actually like that. So that's a benefit. Talking about transparency, if you think about like big brands, right, online, users today really appreciate when they understand like the ethics and the reasoning and the beliefs behind people and companies. So like companies like Warby Parker, right, they make glasses online. For every pair of glasses you buy, they send a pair of glasses to someone in need. Or Tom shoes, for every pair of Tom shoes you buy, they send a pair of Tom shoes to someone in need. So that kind of model and people being honest about how they give back or how they're involved in their community is very, very popular as well on social. So influencers and user generated content builds the most trust. What do those two words mean? So an influencer is someone who has a following on social media and probably specializes in one particular interest or space. That doesn't mean they have to be like a celebrity, right? Like Kim Kardashian is one of the most followed people on the internet. I wouldn't really call her an influencer, I'd call her a celebrity. But maybe there's someone in your community who's a chef and they have like 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 followers on their Instagram and they post great videos of food. That individual will be seen as an influencer in your community, someone who has a strong following in a local area that's really educated in one specific field. So users will take the advice of that local chef who says, these are the best knives, you have to buy these knives, over some ad that they find that says, you have to buy these knives, these are the best knives. So people trust those influencers on social media, as well as user-generated content. So sometimes called UGC, user-generated content, are photos that people upload for other people or brands to share. So for us as a mortgage company, maybe we put out an ask on our social media for people to upload photos of their, in front of their homes. If we grabbed all those photos and started sharing them out, people would notice that and say, wow, these photos are coming from real people. These are the real stories of folks who have sold homes and worked with Cross Country Mortgage. Like, they will trust those people and their experiences versus us just saying as a company, no, really, we work with a lot of people. We get people into their homes. So anytime you can get photos from other people to share, that builds a lot of trust with users. Video content, and we'll get into this a lot more in depth, but video content far and away is the most popular type of content on social media. So regardless of what platform you're on, if you're wanting to talk about or educate people about a certain topic, or you want to share a certain home, you could do it in text, you could do it in pictures, you could share a link, but if you can do that in video, that's when you make the biggest impact and can reach the most people. And we'll kind of talk about why that is and some best practices with that later. In the moment content is rising in popularity. What does that mean, in the moment content? So if you think about like your Facebook page, or if you have Instagram, your Instagram page, there are posts people can put up that live on what's called their feed. It lives there for eternity until they might delete it. You might come across it the day it's posted, you might come across it a couple weeks later. It has time to kind of be out there in the world for people to see for a while. Those platforms now have things called stories. So Facebook has stories, Instagram has stories. They're only up for 24 hours. It's a quick behind the scenes, typically in the moment video or photo that's taken, but it's gone after 24 hours. People are spending a lot more time looking at that short-lived content than they are diving around and looking for that stuff that stays on your feed a little bit longer. So you're seeing more and more platforms add that functionality. LinkedIn is getting ready to add that functionality. We're getting visitors who are super interested in the content right here. The other things that have really grown in popularity are messengers and chatbots. So, Facebook has Messenger. You can send direct messages on LinkedIn. You can send direct messages on Instagram. WhatsApp is a texting platform that's technically a social network. People respond very frequently to Messenger. I'm guessing, particularly in your field, you guys are seeing this, right? What you used to maybe have more focused on email, you start to do more and more texting, and then from there you're seeing people communicating with you through these direct messaging platforms. People tend to be a lot more responsive there than they are anywhere else. So that's certainly on the rise. So this chart is something that I love to show because I think that there is a lot of misconceptions about our social media sites and the platforms that are out there. I think that people hear what their kids are saying, or they read articles in the news and they think things like, my 13-year-old's not on Facebook. I heard no one's on Facebook anymore. It's dying. It's only 70-year-old people talking about the weather. Like, no one's on Facebook anymore. So it's important to look at the real data and the numbers and the science behind where people are, because some of those misconceptions are rooted in truth and some of them are like surprisingly not accurate. And when you're making the decision of, oh, hold on, I think we might have a question.
Yeah, I've got a question that came in. So Paul asked a question, and I'm sorry, thanks for that, Aaron. Paul asked the question about, can you recommend some good video editing software programs that are reasonably priced and easy to use?
Yeah, so I use Macs. There's a free platform that comes on Macs called iMovie, and they also have a device on your app on your phone that I recommend without question. It's very, very easy. It's very, very user friendly. Doing it on your mobile device is also easy. The paid software would be like Adobe Premiere that works on Mac and PC, and Final Cut Pro. Those are expensive. You would have to watch a lot of like YouTube videos to educate yourself on using them. So anything you can find that's free. I'm trying to think of what an option would be for PC that's similar to iMovie. And to be honest with you, I'd have to look that up. It's been a while since I've used a PC to edit video. But anything that is going to be on that low cost tier is going to be usually so user friendly that you're just kind of like dragging in clips from your phone. And that's about it. If you're hoping to do more in-depth editing, that's when you are going to want those more expensive platforms, and want to do that training. But kind of to my point on the previous slide, people respond really well, honestly, to just taking your phone, putting it on a $10, they sell little $10 like tripods for your phone. Just clip it so that it's steady, and don't even need to edit. Talk for 30 seconds into your phone. You know, on your phone app, you can edit the top and bottom. So maybe at the beginning you waited a few minutes, or maybe at the end you were fumbling with your phone. Just trim those, upload it straight away. People tend to drop off at the beginning of a video if you don't jump right into the action. So I'll see loan officers all the time that I work with at Cross Country want to create these like 30-second long intros with slides and their logo. And that's typically what they want the editing software for. But people are gone off your video if you have stuff like that. They want you to just pop into the video and say, here's what's going on in the industry this week. You know what I mean? So if you feel like editing software is what's keeping you from doing video, I would say, don't even worry about editing. Grab your phone and start uploading videos. If you've been doing that and you're maybe trying to do something to the next level, if you have Mac, I recommend iMovie. Otherwise, Rich, if you have contact information, I'd be happy to send you some PC suggestions. I can talk to the team member that on our team who does video, who might have PC suggestions off the top of their head.
Cool, and I will. I'll make sure we get that information to Paul. Tony will take care of that. Tony was doing some research for me. You mentioned having a tripod that'll hold the phone. She found something for me where a tripod that'll hold the phone that would also have the light ring. Because as you guys, I got a little shadow issue here. So, but she's got a nice link for that. So I think we're going to try that for some videos too. So.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into video a little bit more, but I will say a couple pieces of equipment that are cheap can really make the difference. And the three things you only really need to care about are your lighting. So is it super dark where you are, or do you have a little bit of light? And you can do that easily. Like I'm sitting next to a sliding glass door. So hopefully it seems like I have a little bit more light to me, versus if I was in another one of my rooms in my house that doesn't have overhead light, you know, maybe just had a couple lamps. So even if you don't buy one of those light rings, which are really inexpensive, and they even have ones that go right over your phone, you know, just being thoughtful about, well, let me try to stand by a window, or let me go outside, or whatever it might be. The second thing is your audio. So just making sure you sound good. It can be as simple as your phone audio, but just making sure you're close enough to your phone that it sounds okay. Again, there's cheap, you know, microphones that you can connect to a phone to kind of just make sure that it's really nice. And then the other thing is just framing. So this is my media background coming into play, but usually just like a headshot is like the top of your head to right here on your chest. If you kind of back super far away and have your phone on the other side of the room, you know, that's going to take folks out of it. If you have decent lighting, decent audio, and decent framing, people will think, okay, yeah, this is it. I want to watch this video. This has what I need to know. Anything beyond that you might purchase from an equipment standpoint is just like really like a nice to have, like you know, cherry on top. Having just kind of the basic set, you don't really have to spend much or add much to the equipment you have on your phone built in to have an experience where users aren't like taken out of viewing it because it doesn't sound right, or it's too dark or anything like that.
We're good. We're good for questions now.
Awesome. Yeah, so keep in mind, this is monthly active users by social network. So this isn't how many user accounts exist. For example, if that was the case, the number for Twitter would be much higher. This is how many people actually log in and use the accounts that they have. So I'm not sure if it would be a surprise or not a surprise, but the largest social network with 2.4 billion users logging in every month is Facebook. Facebook has certainly seen a decay in growth over the years. Not as many new users are flocking the way that they used to, but that doesn't mean it's still not the largest social media network. It's also most popular with millennials. So I think there's some people think in their head that maybe it's more of like a baby boomer platform. That's really not the case. That generation is just growing on the platform, but still the most active users are millennials. Certainly Gen Z is not flocking to Facebook. And I think that is where a lot of that misconception comes from, that this young audience isn't there. And, you know, the reasoning is simple. When Facebook started, you know, actually I was in college, like the second year that Facebook was out there, it was only for college students. So you logged on to talk to your friends, talk about what was going on, party photos from parties and stuff like that. And then as it expanded, your parents were suddenly on Facebook, your aunt was on Facebook, your old teacher from middle school was on Facebook, and you were like, okay, I'm not going to talk, I'll still be on Facebook, but I'm not going to talk about everything. I'll go to another platform for that. So for the younger generation who just wants to chat with friends on social media, they're like, well, I'm not doing that in front of my parents. They'll probably be there in 5 years. So if you can only be on one social media network, if you look at this chart, Facebook is far and away the best place to be. It covers the largest demographic of different users. We'll talk spend a little bit later, but if you were ever interested in any kind of paid advertising, Facebook is the best place to do that. So though there's a lot in the news about the platform, and certainly things change, and we'll see how it looks in the next couple of years, it is still the largest network. But what I find people are the most surprised about is what platform comes in at number 2, and that's YouTube. And this number has grown significantly over the past couple of years. And I do think by the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if YouTube eclipses Facebook. And for the first time, it's not the number 1 social media network out there. So YouTube is just videos. What it has that's different from these other platforms is you don't have to share anything about yourself and your personal life to be active on the platform. You just go in and type in the search bar what you're looking for. People use YouTube across generations. It's one of the most popular platforms for Generation Z. So the young generation is super active on YouTube, and it's one of the largest platforms for the baby boomer audience. So across every generation, people are using YouTube, and that's because they use it as a search engine. They use it to get entertained or to get educated. You know, anytime I have to learn how to do anything, I look up a YouTube video on it, particularly now being in my house and like, okay, I guess I should probably take care of a few things around the house. I'm on YouTube like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Where can I find this? And people use it that way across generations. So the reason I don't always suggest it for folks to create an account on is you have to have video content in order to be active as a creator on the platform. So if you're not someone who's interested in creating a bunch of video content for your business goals, it's probably not the place for you, because it is a place where video lives. However, especially from the educational perspective, if you feel like I love to be on video, I just love explaining things, I feel like I'm a really good teacher, I love working with, maybe you work a lot with first-time homebuyers and you love talking to them about all the steps they need to take and what's important and what to look for and what's on trend right now, then that could be a platform where you could be really successful because the users really are there. Talking about demographics a little bit, I didn't mention Facebook is about 50-50 split men and women. YouTube skews a little bit more male, actually. So tends to have a little bit of a more male audience. So next is Instagram. Instagram is, you can see half that audience size. You can really see the step between those first 2 platforms and all the others, right? So 1 billion users on Instagram. It's a platform that really can only be accessed on your mobile phone. And it's just a photo sharing platform. So you can share photos in your feed or videos. Or as I mentioned, they have that story feature. So you can share photos and videos that live for 24 hours in your stories. Instagram is really growing as a platform. They are owned by Facebook. So there's a lot of integrations and connections between Facebook and Instagram. For example, if you run an ad, it'll run on both of those platforms. It's a little bit of a more female leading audience, and the millennial audience really thrives on this platform. Something I will say for realtors is that like inspirational and aspirational photos do really well on this platform. So photos of homes, of great kitchens, you know, Instagram stories that take people behind the scenes of a home tour that you're doing, that content is really popular on Instagram. So for your audience, like if I had to suggest 2 platforms for you to be on, it would really be a no-brainer to me. It would be Facebook and Instagram. So if you're not already there, or you've been thinking about being there, maybe you're active on Facebook and you're wanting to be somewhere else, you know, Instagram, I've seen a lot of success for audience building and growth for your business on that platform. And I think next week, that's where we'll dive into a lot of details because there's a lot of tips there for how to grow your business. So that's Instagram. The next platform, when I did a presentation like this a year ago, was not even on my list. And now it's number 4. If you have kids, you probably have heard of this. So TikTok already at 500 million users. That's crazy. It started overseas in Asia and has really taken over here in the US. And this is really popular with that Gen Z audience, right? This is a young demographic. TikTok is a video platform. It's really popular for short, fun, funny, a lot of like dance videos. People spend a lot of time just scrolling through and following, you know, different people on the platform. Not something I suggest for most people's business goals, only because home buyers are not really the demographic on TikTok. But to be honest with you, the growth and trajectory I'm seeing on this platform, I will not be surprised, like if I was giving this presentation a year from now, to see that user number so much higher and to see the demographics start to get a lot older. It's really starting to creep up into the millennials now, and I could see it, you know, getting farther. But again, similar to YouTube, if you're not comfortable being fun on video, you're probably not going to care that TikTok gets bigger a year from now. So if it doesn't fit with your brand, probably not something for your business goals, but it is an interesting platform to watch. It's definitely disrupting the industry right now, and it's been kind of fun to see the trajectory there. So a lot of people are surprised to see how low the user interaction is on Twitter. 330 million users. This is a more male-leaning audience. The average Twitter user logs on for 2 minutes. So it's just a short form social media platform. Most people are logging in to get news updates, to follow along with something that's happening in the moment. So if it's the Super Bowl, you might log on to Twitter to see everyone talking about the Super Bowl, or the Oscars, to see what everyone's reaction is to the Oscars. But it's more of a news source. So maybe if you're someone who's really, really active in your community and you want to follow your local you know, news personalities and, you know, what's going on in your community as a way to get involved in that conversation, I could see that as a way for you to use Twitter, but it's honestly not something I suggest often for folks for business. I just think there's a couple other platforms on here that could use your time more. Like LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has a smaller audience, still at 300 million, but what's unique about LinkedIn is that it is just focused on career building and career relationships. So while people log into Facebook for a million different reasons, right? To share photos of their cats, to look up a restaurant to eat in, to watch a funny video, to check in on an old friend, people are only logging into LinkedIn for career development. So when it comes to more so your professional networking and less maybe like leads and relationships for you with consumers, but making business relationships, you know, growing who you are and what your brand is, getting advice and having conversations around what's going on in your industry. LinkedIn has really changed over the past couple of years. So if you created an account 8 years ago and you forgot about it, you can't find your password, now is a really good time to refresh your memory. LinkedIn has really changed in the fact that people used to just log in to create their user profile and maybe look for a job, and then otherwise, you know, never touched it. But now people are really active on the platform, having conversations, sharing articles, talking about best practices. And it's become a really great platform for your professional development. So if that's a piece of something you want to grow, I definitely suggest it. Yes, question.
Yes, Aaron, so how much has that probably grown year over year from like last year to this year?
So it's not so much that the users have grown, it's that the engagement has grown. And they're seeing a 50% growth every year in engagement on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's cool.
The thing that's really interesting about that is only 1% of users are sharing content weekly. What that means is a lot of people are logging in and commenting on posts and liking posts and looking at content, but they're a little nervous to share content themselves, which means the unique situation you have on LinkedIn that you really don't have on any other platform is you can kind of be a big fish in a big pond, because tons of people are looking for content to engage in, but not a lot of people are sharing content. So if you post a post or a video in your feed, you're going to get a lot of engagement and you're not going to have as much competition. So if your brand development, personal brand development, business development, relationship building is a key piece of something you want to work on in your business, start posting to LinkedIn, post, you know, articles of what's going on in your industry, just a text post from you of your opinion on something that's going on, motivation, career advice. Video content is very successful on LinkedIn. So if it's a platform you've kind of ignored, it's a really great time to log back in and see what's going on. I get a lot of my industry knowledge and experience in staying up to date on what's going on comes from me logging into LinkedIn and following folks in my industry and kind of having discussions with them about, what's going on and what's been changing in social media. So the same is true for really every industry type.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So the last two platforms are the smallest. And I think some folks are surprised because they hear Snapchat a lot to see it so low, but Snapchat, again, is really more of a Gen Z platform, some millennials as well. It's a place where you can have text conversations and share photos and videos that go away after 24 hours. So when we were talking about Facebook and how the younger generation needed a place to chat and talk away from the eyes of, the people around them, a platform like that is really why that was built and why it's popular. Your text conversations disappear after 24 hours. I have talked to realtors and younger realtors who are like, yeah, I'm on Snapchat and I talk with my clients, we chat through there all the time. I'm sure that those cases exist, but really the home buying generation right now is not on this platform. The other interesting thing is Snapchat was rising the way we see TikTok rising, but what happened was Instagram completely stole what Snapchat was doing and they added stories to their platform. So that same idea where a photo or a video goes away after 24 hours, they just stole that idea. They put it in stories. So someone like me, a millennial who was hearing about Snapchat and was like, yeah, I don't know, I guess I should go on there. It seems cool. Right at the time I was trying to download the app and start to use it, Instagram added stories. I'm already on Instagram. My friends are already there. I already have my connection. So I was like, oh, why would I download this app? This has what I want to do now. So they really stole the legs from Snapchat and stunted their growth. So it's really just stayed with a younger demographic. And I don't know that it's ever going to be able to pick up the steam it used to have. So if that, for some reason, I have loan officers who call me and say, shouldn't I be on Snapchat? And I'm like, I really don't think that you should be. But that's the story behind that. And then finally is Pinterest. So though Pinterest has the smallest audience, it has the most specialized audience. So significantly more female leaning. It's a platform where you share links and photos of inspirational things, most commonly home decor, food, fashion. So certainly there is a case for Pinterest being very, very popular in the home space. So if you find that, it's a platform that you personally like, there certainly is a strategy there to having some boards that you build out on Pinterest to try to showcase, interior design, home types, other content like that. I might not suggest it for other industries, but really real estate does kind of resonate there. So again, smaller audience, but there could be some interest. So that's kind of the lay of the land with the different social platforms. It's always important to know that and to have that basic understanding before you decide what your personal strategy is going to be for your social media marketing, because you only have so much time in your week and you have to be active on your platforms. So it's good to be honest and say, all right, if I really just have time to be active on one or two of these, what are the two going to be and why? And the reasoning should always have a piece of it in, well, what demographics are there? If the folks you're trying to talk to and engage with aren't on the platform, no reason to spend your time there. Cool. Any other questions before we dive into social media rules to live by?
Not at this point. Chat's open for that. And then did you mention, thought I hear you mention something called WhatsApp? Is that,
Yeah.
What is that? I should have asked that question when you mentioned it.
No, that's okay. So WhatsApp is unique. It gets featured as a social network. I don't really know why. I guess it's owned by Facebook as well, but WhatsApp is just a messenger app. So it's just like Messenger on your phone. But the reason I've used it in the past is because it has free international texting. So when I've traveled abroad, I've been on WhatsApp to message family back home because you just have to be on Wi-Fi and then you can use the messaging. Okay. It's significantly popular. I think it's you can have a username on there, and so you can kind of message with people and it's not going to be on your main phone texting. I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why people might want that. It's not something that I've used a ton. I've used it for some group messaging. I play in a sports league and we'll have a group message on WhatsApp. But yeah, it's just a messenger app. But I did mention before, messenger apps are becoming more and more popular. I wouldn't be surprised if folks in the industry are saying, yeah, people want me to have WhatsApp to be messaging with them. And I'm not sure why the consumers might want that. So I'd be interested to know if folks are using that and like what the reasoning is that people are wanting to message there as opposed to like their main, phone messaging app.
Cool. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to go over some general rules, and these apply to every single social platform. So these are like the foundations of being successful on social. This is kind of like base level one, and it's good to just check in and make sure you're doing this. And again, this applies regardless of where you're choosing to spend your time. The most important rule, and I talk to folks about this all the time because I think there might be some different opinions out there on this, but it is so much more important for you to be active and engaged in a few places than to have an account everywhere that you don't really touch or log into. The reason is people are going to search your name, right? That's what we do now. Before we work with someone, before we talk to someone, we're Googling them. These social media platforms, regardless of how active you are, they're going to come up really high in your search results because they're just huge websites. So if you have a social media site with your name, people are going to be able to find it. And if when they go to it, you haven't posted in a while, or they can see people asking you questions that you're not responding to, that's going to be a red flag. They're going to be like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to work with this person. They don't answer questions. Like I need someone who communicates. So it's much better for you to be really active in a few places than to be silent everywhere. And what does that mean to be active? If people are asking you questions, you're answering them. If they're sending you a direct message, you're answering them. You're posting content regularly to the feed of whatever the platform is. When I talk about responding, people have really high expectations for what that frequency is and how quickly you're going to be able to get in touch with them. So 53% of users expect an answer within an hour. So if someone shoots you a Facebook message, they're like, okay, in the next hour, I should have a response from this individual, or else they might move on to try to get in touch with somebody else. That expectation gets even shorter if they've made a complaint or if they're having an issue. So people expect, I'm going to send them a Facebook message because I'm frustrated about X, Y, and Z. They should get back to me within like half an hour, right? So making sure, obviously, you don't want to put unrealistic expectations on yourself or be answering work-related messages, when you're out and about, when you can be out and about. But keep in mind that folks are expecting those responses. So if you're not logging in and checking those social platforms like once a day, you're going to be missing out on some good opportunities. Finding that voice to be active and engaged with is important. There's that crossroads between personable and professional. That seems to be a sweet spot. You obviously want to avoid controversial topics. I know some people, the rules are different for our industries, and I'm not quite sure, but for us in the mortgage space, our loan officers really aren't supposed to be using their personal Facebook account for marketing. But I know in real estate, it seems a lot of folks are using that personal account, and I'm not sure as much if it's by company or if it's like an industry standard there. But obviously, if you are using your personal Facebook for your relationship building with clients and to share behind the scenes of what you're doing in your work, you need to be thoughtful about what else you communicate about. Obviously, if a piece of something is what you like believe in and you're very open with that with your clients, and that's a piece of why someone might work with you, that's one thing. But just be thoughtful about the fact that your clients can see what you're doing on social media, and you want to be, be thoughtful about that. So being active is huge. We talked about how important authenticity and transparency was, right now in 2020. So what does that mean? What does that look like for you? Every one of us has a personal brand. You might not realize it, or you might realize it. So if you're not sure what that means, if you ask 10 of your friends, what 3 words would you use to describe me? You would start to see some of the same words being used over and over again. And that would teach you like, okay, I guess people like to work with me because I'm X, I'm Y, and I'm Z. So you want your social media to put that forward, to showcase those things that make you, that are the reasons why people want to work with you. Maybe you're funny, maybe you're really educational, you're good at explaining things, maybe you have like a great eye for design, maybe you're really involved in your community. Whatever those differentiators are about you, you want to make sure that it matches what you're doing on social. And the same is true for like the tone of voice that you use. So this little chart kind of just shows what like behaviors and ways of communicating and showcasing their brands do people respond to on social. And you can kind of see what some of those are at the top. So honest, friendly, helpful, having a tone of voice like that on social is something that people really respond to. You can see like snarky, for example, is at the bottom. So maybe you think that's on the plus side of your personality is you're kind of snarky, but keep in mind what do people like to communicate with and experience. As people in like a personable field, I'm sure that this is something that might come kind of more naturally to you guys. So go behind the scenes. The question I get all the time is, okay, great, I'm going to get more active on Instagram. What the heck am I going to post? Like, who cares what I'm up to? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to post pictures of what I eat. No, that's true. But, people are very, very curious naturally, and they want to see you pull that curtain aside and show like the human side of what you do every day. This should be easy for you guys. People are incredibly curious about homes, regardless of where they are in the home buying process. Like, I follow so many real estate people in my area online because I want to go behind the scenes when they post that Instagram story of that really amazing home on the east side of Cleveland that they got the opportunity to tour with. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that tile. Look at that backyard. Look at that pool. People love that kind of content regardless of if they're looking to buy, have recently bought. And you guys are kind of at the forefront. You're the gatekeepers of that content, especially when it's localized. We're very curious about the homes in our neighborhoods, right, in our area. We want to take that peek inside, and that's something that you get the opportunity to do all the time. The other thing to keep in mind is that people trust people. They don't trust brands. So what does that mean? They want to see a real person. They want to see somebody's face. They want to know that the person they're engaging with is a real person and not just infographics about what's going on in the industry and links to open houses with no personal touch. The more that you can take a photo featuring either yourself or someone else, or a video featuring yourself or someone else, you will see how much more people react and engage to that content than a photo where someone isn't in it. I mean, that's true of if you're touring a home, take a selfie of something with your face in it. You'll see that gets a lot more interaction than, oh, isn't this great tile behind this tub? So if you're not super comfortable being in front of the camera, I always recommend just try it a little bit more. Once you see how much more people respond to that, you'll, I think, get a little bit more comfortable with sharing it. And don't forget that even the smallest moments in your day could be of interest to someone else. So even if you think it's not exciting to share on social media, a lot of times people are just curious about the day-to-day of what your life is like, particularly because you guys work in an industry for folks who have like a 9-to-5. The way that your workday is set up is a little bit interesting to folks. Like what I do 9-to-5, usually in the office, sitting at my desk, leaving a couple times a day for a meeting or to get my lunch, versus someone who's driving around, going to different types of meetings, going to different restaurants in our community. Like that's a little bit more of an interesting work day to those who don't have it, right? So even if it's become a little bit mundane to you, keep in mind there are things that you do throughout your day that are going to be interesting to everyone else. So share the spotlight, especially for the people who aren't as comfortable being on camera themselves or sharing photos themselves. Okay, well, if you know people like photos of other people, who are some other people you could feature? So find opportunities to showcase your sphere. Is there a partner that you work with? Someone like Rich say, hey, let's do a Facebook Live. Let's talk about what's going on in the industry. I don't want to do it all by myself. Let's bring someone else into the picture. Not only does it give you that opportunity to showcase people, but it helps your relationships by, showcasing the people that you work with. So think about all your different business partners that are in different sectors, and how can you kind of use their knowledge and use them as something you can leverage on your own personal social. Feature your community. So particularly in this space, you want to be very active and engaged in the community that you live in. Are there business owners you can feature? Are there restaurants you can feature? Especially right now, a lot of people are doing that during the pandemic, like every Friday featuring a great place to get takeout from, with like a photo of the owner, in front of the restaurant or something like that. So if it's related to the community, it's certainly related to your guys' audience. Yeah, is there a question?
Yeah, no, one of the things one of my agents had come up with, we had a lot of fun with it, was just he had set up a camera on his dashboard. And if you've ever seen the Seinfeld, two comedians going for a cup of coffee, it was for two real estate professionals going for a cup of coffee. And so, we had a lot of fun with it, and it was just a casual conversation. So, yeah, it's just one of the many ideas.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. No, that's great, and that's super fun. the other people you could feature are the people that you work with. So anytime you can showcase the stories behind the people you work with, if you think about this industry, you are doing an incredible service to people. Like the act of getting someone into their home, there's so much emotion there. You know, we sometimes get used to it because it's the industry that we work in, but it's one of the most special things that happens in someone's lifetime, right? It's so memorable. So if you can feature why it's special to them, maybe you worked with someone for a year to finally get them into their first home, or maybe these kids finally have a yard, or whatever the story is behind the family. If you guys are taking photos at, for us, you know, it's at the closing table, but you can get those photos of them with the sold sign in front of their home, or, you know, whatever the case may be. That's the content that's not only easy for you to get because you're there for those moments anyways, but it tends to get the most interaction. Take it to the next level even. And when you're featuring someone you're working with, tell them, I'm going to post this photo on my Facebook. You follow me on Facebook, right? Oh yeah. I'm going to tag you. You know what I mean? Like, don't be afraid to bring them into that process, because they're going to want to share that photo to their network, which means you're going to get that immediate referral. You're going to get in front of their entire sphere as soon as you post that photo. So make sure you're featuring the people that you work with as often as you can, and make sure you get their permission to do so as well. So I said we'd be talking about video. Video really is the king of social media content. When you can use video, use video. If you're thinking, I don't want to be on camera, I don't like video, it's time to rip the Band-Aid off. The best thing I can suggest is, I find a lot of people are hesitant and they feel like things kind of have to be perfect before they'll share a video. Just rip the Band-Aid off. Just shoot a quick video on your phone and upload it. It won't be perfect. Who cares? People like that. They like that authenticity. And you'll find the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. But try not to overthink it. Just shoot that video and post it. Once you start to see all the conversation and engagement that's going to come from it, you might get a lot more comfortable with doing it more frequently. As people, we learn the best when we can have video, text, audio all together. So if I look at a photo to learn something versus if I watch a 30-second video of someone explaining it to me, I'm going to learn the best through somebody explaining it to me. So if you have like educational content to share, the best way to make it sink in with your audience is to do it in a video. We kind of already talked about it, but you want to be very careful about your lighting, your audio, your framing, but also your length. So people don't watch videos for very long on social. You want to just stay around a minute long, maybe two. The longer you go on, the less people are going to be watching. If you have 10 minutes worth of something to talk about, make it 10 videos that you share throughout the course of a couple weeks versus one really long video that's stuffed with content, because most people aren't going to stick around for the whole time. Captions are really important. So 85% of people are watching videos on their phone with the sound off. I don't even know what my ringtone sounds like. I haven't had sounds on my phone for like 5 years. So usually I'm scrolling through Facebook or I'm scrolling through Instagram, and I'm in a situation where I don't want the sound to, come out of my phone. Those platforms, Facebook has a built-in captioning. YouTube has built-in captioning. Once you upload a video to Facebook, you just want to go in and turn captions on. They automatically generate them. And then you can just kind of watch the generated captions and you can edit them. So if they thought I said this, but I said this, you can quickly adjust it. But the difference between turning those captions on or off are the difference between your audience actually watching those videos and not watching them. So that's a huge one. Go live. So Facebook has the ability for you to go live on the platform. Instagram has the ability for you to go live on the platform. LinkedIn is getting ready to launch. They're beta testing right now the ability to go live. The difference between a recorded video that you're going to record and post on your feed versus going live is, number one, when you go live, everyone that follows you gets notified. Oh, Erin Fox is going live on Facebook right now. When I post a video on Facebook, nobody gets notified that I posted it, right? They just might come across it in their feed. So you get that ability of getting your name right in front of everybody. Even if they don't watch your video, they got reminded about you for a couple seconds of their day, and that's not a bad thing either. Live video is really more so meant for that longer video content. So like the conversation we're having right now, like this could maybe be the type of content that could be a Facebook Live. Like we were talking about, live content is also a good opportunity to bring in a partner and maybe have like a conversation and a back and forth and a Q&A. You do want to have a little bit of an outline when you go live, so you don't want to go completely off the cuff. You want to have a general idea of what you're going to talk about, but try not to write up some kind of script that you're going to follow. Again, it's about that authenticity and just kind of speaking from the heart. Yeah.
So one of the things when I'm talking to agents, Aaron, about using video and Facebook Live and everything, I've got a couple really talented agents that are very conscientious or concerned about showing themselves live.
Sure.
And I know that you've spent a little time talking about authenticity and what that means, but how would I convince somebody, or what would you say to somebody that is just like, I'm just not doing video. I'm going to do everything else but video. I'm afraid of seeing my face up there. I'd be curious what you would suggest to somebody.
Yeah, I think one thing is like, especially if it's something you do yourself, like speaking from experience and the numbers don't lie. If you're like, hey, you know what, I didn't want to do them either, but I started posting videos, or I started using videos through emails, and I started getting responses like 5 times more. Every time I talk to someone, they're like, oh yeah, I loved your video. So
Yeah.
if you can give any type of data or personal experience, that helps. But the other thing is, maybe you can say, okay, if you don't want to do a video, would you be willing to come on my Facebook Live? Like, I'm going to be showing video. So maybe that it helps someone feel like, well, I'm not the only one doing it. I would also be very interested to see how people feel about doing video after what we've experienced the past couple months, right? People who haven't used things like Zoom, what we're using right now for meetings, are doing it to get together with friends, have business meetings, talk to clients. And maybe people are going to get a little bit more comfortable being on video after we've kind of been forced to use video as our main form of communication over the past couple of weeks. But I think anytime you can pull it into your personal experience and kind of empathize and say, I totally get it. You think I want to be on video? You know what I mean? But hey, I've done it and this is the success I've seen. Why don't you do one with me and see how it goes? Could be a great way to kind of get someone to dip their toe into it. But of course, at the end of the day, there's going to be certain people who are just like, they're not going to do it, right? It's just not something that you're comfortable with. And, they're going to miss out on some of that extra engagement they could get if they were willing to do it.
Well, I would invite some of them to some of the video networking Zoom meetings I've been on, where if they're really early in the morning, like 7:30, 8 o'clock, you have people, literally get up, they put some sort of shirt on or something, but there's no makeup, there's no hair,
Yeah.
on, everything's, up and everything. So, and at the end of the day, you might notice it at first, but it's not what you're there for. You're there to build a relationship, preferably find somebody to network with, maybe somebody you can help. So yeah, and you kind of look past all that after a while. But I've seen some people that in a Zoom video that I would never have seen in that particular dress or whatever. So I mean, I don't think it's that. I guess my point to that is not that big of a deal to be on video anymore.
No, and like I said, on the plus side, people want that authenticity. They don't want things to look filtered and edited, and they don't want you to speak perfectly. They want you to, you know, stumble on your words a couple times. They want you to look like a real person, especially when someone's deciding to work with you on one of the most important things they're going to do. They want to feel like this is the real person I'm getting by working with them. This isn't like they seem too good to be true. They seem too polished to be true. People are embracing that authenticity. So, dive into that.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me of when we were talking about doing Zillow reviews, that even there was a survey taken that somebody would be a little more trusting of the agent or the loan officer on the other side if in fact it wasn't all fives all the way down. Like there would be like one person that said, well, the process was slow or something happened or my communication was off. I think people would gravitate to somebody that had maybe one hiccup review, if you will, versus everything that was stellar because they just don't believe it.
100%. If you see all 5 stars, you immediately think it's edited. We deal with that. There's certain like review platforms where they take out your reviews if it's not 5-star and they won't post it. And we'll have loan officers say, hey, I want to use that platform. And we're like, No, because you need to be able to show the times when someone did have a 1-star review, and people get it. Oftentimes those people that leave 1-star reviews are the type of people you see when you're looking for a restaurant recommendation. They're like, 1-star, I got sat near the bathroom. And you're like, all right, people
Yeah,
out there
right.
just, there's just people that leave bad reviews. That's just what brings them joy, I think, in their day for some reason. So
There you
people
go.
get that. We've had reviews for long enough that we know to sift through those and say, okay, I'm sure that was a one-off. I'm sure this person had weird expectations, but most of these are 5s, maybe a couple 4s. This seems like a good person to work with. You're right. If there aren't any of those smaller reviews, it looks edited.
Yeah, and that's why making a mistake in a video, big deal. So
Yeah, of course. All right. So really quickly, talking about paid media, you don't have to spend money to be on social media, but there certainly is quite a few opportunities for lead generation in the paid space. And I know there's always a lot of questions around that. So even if it's not something you think you might want to do, it's good just to have that knowledge. Organic reach is declining on social media. What does that mean? When a post is organic, you posted it without spending any money. So what networks like Facebook and like Instagram are doing is it's free to use their platform, so they have to make money somehow. So what they've done is gotten people addicted to their platforms, and now they're kind of pulling back on how many people in your audience see your content naturally, organically. And then they tell you, hey, if you spend a little bit of money, more people can see this content. So this is going to be like if you have a business Facebook page versus your personal page, but there are paid opportunities on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, even on Twitter, and ways to reach a very, very targeted audience. It's scary the amount of knowledge these sites have on us, but those are the scary tools in our toolbox if we choose to use them. But it is very different depending on what platform you're looking at. So of course, the first thing to think about is all of that audience demographic we talked about a few slides ago. Make sure you want to spend money on a platform that makes sense, where people are that you want to reach. LinkedIn is more that B2B professional development site. So would that be a great place for you to spend to try to reach, home buyers? Maybe you're having an event and you're trying to reach home buyers to come to the event. Is LinkedIn really the right space for that? Probably not. So making sure you're on the right platform to start off with, and then having those goals and audience in mind that you're trying to reach. So do you want to get people to come to an event? Are you trying to send them to a website? Do you want them to start following you on social media? Do you want, to send them to an article that you've written online? Or do you want them to shoot you a direct message? There's different types of ads for those different types of experiences. So making sure you have in mind, well, what do I really want people to do if I was to spend money? Where do I want to send them? What could I measure to say, yeah, this worked or this didn't work? And then there are different types of ads on every platform that kind of match those different goals. But the amount of targeting that you can do is pretty crazy, right? So you can get all the way down to zip code to decide, where you're trying to reach folks, where they live. There's a lot of different demographic data you can get into with age, gender. You can do stuff with income even. Language, obviously. And then what are they interested in? Do they go to Zillow often? Are they reading realtor.com? You can really dive into those details. The one thing I will say is this has started to change a lot in our space. The targeting we could do like a year ago, 2 years ago in the real estate space, they've started to give us less and less options because they're trying to do like equal opportunity housing stuff. So this does change. But if you are interested in getting into paid, I definitely suggest trying to read a little bit of articles and education on it. Facebook has a really great series where they kind of walk you through understanding ads. And a good thing to keep in mind, like I mentioned, Facebook owns Instagram. So you can run an ad on Facebook and have it run on Instagram as well. And you can kind of hit audiences on both platforms there. The other thing to think about is you can use your customer data. So you can upload an email list and run campaigns to that email list. So maybe you wanted to hit, people that you've worked with in the past and do some kind of a referral campaign or something like that. Those options are certainly there. So that's kind of like a basic overview of paid. I would love to hear whether or not that's something you guys are wanting to dive deeper into, or get some examples, or if there's any type of questions, let the team know and we can dive into that more next week.
Yeah, how we doing on time too, as far as Aaron? Oh, perfect. Ta-da! That was good. We're right at 1 o'clock too, so
We're
that's
right
good.
there.
Uh, I'm gonna put a quick question out to see who's using paid ads, and then obviously we'll be covering that. While we're looking around for any other questions, Aaron, do you want to kind of tease next week as far as what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so next week is really more so for folks who are using some of the platforms that we mentioned and getting into maybe like intermediate best practices specific to those platforms. So, okay, you're on Instagram, you know how to use it. You don't need someone to teach you how to post a photo, but what are the tools inside the platform that you might not be taking advantage of? How can you use, for example, hashtags to discover new folks to connect with? How can you use stories really well? So those are going to be like a little bit more detailed best practices per platform. So if you're using them and you're wanting to dive deeper, that'll be more so the conversation. If you're not active on social media, it might be a little bit over your head.
And what's the name of your assistant that just left the camera?
Oh, this is maybe.
Oh,
Um, so there's two cats and a dog in this house, and at least there should just be one that always makes a feature when I'm on video. If it doesn't happen, then then I'm
sounds,
concerned.
sounds like no, that's okay. It sounds like that would be a good idea for somebody who wanted to get a little more personal, is to show their pet. So
I didn't say it, but when all else fails, feature an animal or a child. Now, not everyone's comfortable sharing their kid, but you will always find that a photo of a dog, a photo of a cat, a photo of your kid is going to get a ton of engagement for people. So especially if you're someone who isn't as comfortable being on camera, if nothing else, if you have a pet, and it doesn't always have to apply to like what you're doing for work. You can just say like every Friday you take a picture of Fido Friday. Like we all just need a little happiness going into the weekend. Here's a picture of my dog with their ball, a picture of them on the walk, whatever. Believe it or not, people love that stuff. And then when you work with them, they're going to be like, oh, can we get a picture? Is your dog going to come? Can we get a picture with your dog? People remember that stuff. And then, it's a way for them to get to know you a little bit better.
that's super cool. Did I have two more questions. So we talked about influencers a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
um, is it? Do you think it's possible for somebody to become an influencer who maybe isn't, um, doesn't have their own radio show or TV show, or doesn't have their name on the side of a bus? No offense to Chris, but somebody, is it possible to be an influencer? Is that just something that you can create by sheer number of followers?
100%. That most people that are influencers don't have those things, but what they have instead is social media,
Got it.
especially what's called a macro influencer, which means your audience might not be like crazy massive, but they're all really interested in that one thing. Maybe you're like a bodybuilder and you post all content about what you're eating, workouts that you do, tips for working out, stretching, which protein powder is the best. Like you might just be someone who has that's not even your full-time job. You're just really interested in that. But if you post the same type of content with some frequency, you're smart with the hashtags that you use with it, which we'll talk about hashtags next week,
Yeah.
so that folks can find it. And the other key to it is people just tend, if they like your personality too, then they'll start following you. And suddenly, next thing you know, brands are reaching out and asking you to, hey, we'll give you, $5,000 if you post about our protein powder and say whether or not you like it next week. I have a person I know whose full-time job is they're an Instagram influencer. They are a personal chef and they just post about food, and companies pay them to try their food and talk about it. They are sponsored by Vitamix. They do videos for Vitamix on their live, and it's just someone who lived in Cleveland that really liked posting about the food they were making, but they were funny about it and they posted smart recipes and they were really accessible products and cheap and easy. And it was someone who had lost a really significant amount of weight. So people kind of trusted that and wanted to kind of emulate that. And now they make their full-time living just using it. So, and I particularly have seen like in this space, for example, just because someone lives in a different community as you doesn't mean you couldn't grow your reach as a realtor, because people love interior design. They love homes. They love learning about, home value and tips for the home and things you should be doing and asking people questions and renovations. Oh my gosh, before and afters, people love that kind of stuff. So if you have great photos, it doesn't matter where you live. If you want to grow your brand and have a huge following, you could do that, and you could even become an influencer in your space if that was something that mattered to you, even outside of your community.
That's cool. So Aaron, we're going to get wrapped up here. It's a little after 1 o'clock, and I'll try to keep these around an hour. Obviously, if we have more,
Sure.
it goes deeper. But so we've got coming up, we got Chris Lindell, just superstar influencer. Speaking of, how many followers does he have? Do you know a number?
I don't, but he has a lot, and not only for his company account, but even his personal account.
Yeah, great.
I'm
Chris Lind.
actually,
Oh, go ahead.
I'll just say really quick, we've been putting on webinars like this as a company. If you go to crosscountrymortgage.com/webinars, Chris did a previous webinar with us that you can watch on demand there. And he really actually dives deep into the video question. And if you don't believe me for why you should do video or why you should rip off the Band-Aid to try it, he goes really deep and he does them a lot. So it's coming from someone in your space who's gone through that. I really highly suggest that one as well. It was a couple weeks ago, but if you go to crosscountrymortgage.com/webinars, you can watch that archive. There's also some archived videos there from someone who is talking, specifically about LinkedIn. She talks about Instagram and kind of dives more into social. So if you want even more social content, there's some stuff there too.
Cool. And I typed Chris's name in the chat because it's spelled a little odd.
Yeah.
K-R-I-S. And thank you guys for coming. Keep an eye out. We're going to send a invite later on today. We got a couple people that said thanks. Paul said thanks for all the great info. The other, Paul online said great presentation, Aaron. So thank you guys for noticing. We appreciate that. We're going to get you out an invite later on this afternoon for the Chris Lindahl. We are going to have a raffle. If you attend, pay attention because we're going to ask a question and we're going to have a fun little prize with that. So with that, Aaron, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Tony, thanks for keeping everything together for me. I appreciate you, even though your face is a little frozen there, but I still appreciate you. And thanks, guys. Be good. Be safe.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.